Hey there, it's me again, this time me as me. And I will start good news for you, well, two good news for you, one bad news for me. The first two good news is this is the last time you see me of the event, and I don't think I will ever be re-invited, so you should be off with me for a while. I'm the last person standing between you and lunch, so lunch is coming, don't worry. But yesterday I realized that I have actually a very bad news for me, because when I took over and had the presentation, and it was actually so well received, I got so good feedback that it boosted my ego, like, oh, cool, your presentation was very spontaneous, it was super concrete, no buzzword, not too techy, etc. Like, oh, great, I'm taking the presentation of somebody else, I should do that more often. That works pretty well. And then, you know, going to bed, and suddenly the ego starts to deflate and say, oh, shoot. Tomorrow I will have a presentation, well, you've seen the title, so I will have a presentation that's definitely not spontaneous. Had spent a bit of time on preparing it. It's a presentation about the metaverse, so can it be more buzzwordy than this one? It will have a lot of technical concepts, so like, okay, shoot, I will delete any type of equity that I had, but I will still try to keep you a bit entertained and to explain a bit why we are talking about this very, very far-fetched topic today. So for those who were here last year, actually I was invited by Dario to take part of a panel on the metaverse. So first thing, we realized yesterday, ChatGPT, last year, metaverse, I think Dario sees me as the buzzword guy, but whatever, I took it. And what happened after was funny, is even if really, quite frankly, I improved my way in the panel, but I didn't have really much a clue about metaverse topic, then suddenly, you know, they've seen the LinkedIn post, and I started contacting all over the place as if I am the expert on the metaverse, which is absolutely not the case, but that's also what you see about false idols and how you can easily and very quickly become a LinkedIn celebrity. But you know, I had a bit of the imposter syndrome, so I said, okay, I need to understand a bit more about what it is and really try to make it tangible. So what I tried is really take it from last year and think, okay, concretely, beyond all the buzzwords, even if what I'm going to talk today is not existing, I'm just trying to see, okay, would there be use cases, things in the metaverse concept that could actually happen, and how could it bring value beyond, you know, just the hype, etc. So that will be the journey I will take you. And as we start on the journey, let's start with something that we all know today. This is a traditional, as old school, but as, I would say, efficient and something we know and is get. It's a sales rep visit to an HCP. So you have a sales rep driving their car to a hospital to meet with a physician. It's the model, we know that. It's not, it has proven successful. It's not always super efficient when you think of it. At least I recall my time when I was a sales manager, like, does it really make sense to drive that many kilometers, to spend that long, you know, in a waiting room of a hospital, reading trashy pulp magazines, waiting for HCP that you see is just between emergency and is just seeing you because they want to be nice, or now, more and more often, they just simply cancel at the last minute and you drive off to the next one. So could this be more efficient? So that will be the journey I take. As I mentioned yesterday, disclaimer, my views might not even exist. You know the story and you know the deal. I need to give two concepts. As I said, I kill all my equity from yesterday, but we need to understand a couple of key concepts if we want to talk about the metaverse, so I will be short. The first one is Web3, so instead of talking metaverse, which is very buzzwordy, let's just think about as an evolution of the internet, which would be distributed, where there would be, you know, data decentrally owned and people controlling different pieces. So let's think about an internet that becomes from central to much more fragmented and becoming experience. That's the first one. Just think of the concept. And the other one, another of my pet passions, but I will not talk about everything beyond Web3. There is a lot of blockchain, distributed ledgers, etc. But there is one concept that's pretty cool, which is called smart contract. It's something that's basically when you have a certain set of conditions, you don't need another authority to do the verification. You are basically having a contract that's automatically made when conditions are made. This is something that would be critical to that ideation. So that's the first one. Then what I wanted to share just that it's not science fiction, is we think of it as something far-fetched in the future. Metaverse or Web3 is already existing. So there are a couple of examples. One, by the World Economic Forum, trying to create instances where people can work and collaborate together. Pretty good and interesting use case. There are also ways to use and to hone new technologies. So, the technology to create those virtual world live are now used also in movies, so that's used. The last one, which is the first I wanted to mention, because it's something that I learned much more recently, and it's a very concrete one, and that's also a very healthy habit that I try to take upon myself is, when I see something that I find utterly stupid, what I try to do now is really, okay, I just have a pause and I try to understand why I find something stupid. And here the examples is I have 2 kids. They play video games. Actually, they play less video games than I used to, so I'm pretty proud of, but differences between the two. The eldest playing Zelda, very happy these days. I understand that. I played Zelda, I knew what it was, it is how it evolved. I can understand that he wants to play that. My youngest plays Roblox. And I looked at Roblox. It's not looking good. So I was like, this is stupid. Why are you wasting your time? There are much cooler video games than that. And then I say, okay, walk the walk. Explain me what is Roblox instead of me dismissing what he likes. That's a very bad parenting from me. So explain me what's cool. And then I understood that actually this is a true Web3 experience. When you have people contributing, creating game, you can interact, you can actually create your avatar that you get across those universe. And then I started to understand and see that brands, they were posting and positioning their products there, and that's actually the smartest market research ever. Because instead of producing new sneakers, going into production, spending time and see that, well, they will end up, in a factory store in a couple of years at half the price. If people are not willing to use them for free in the digital world, they will never buy it in the real world. So I found it as a very interesting one, and those are things that we could think of, even if not directly translational, we could think of. So basically, the metaverse exists. How could it be existing for us in pharma? So we go back, and we imagine a future. So instead of having this very tension world of today, well, we meet again our patients. So now the HCP, who is, as we know, busier and busier, they need to spend more time with their patients, less time to focus. Their work is getting more and more complex. They can focus on the patient. Now a sales rep, let's imagine on the metaverse, instead of spending time driving their car and waiting in the waiting room, etc., well, this is actually a real use case and a great place to continue educate yourself. And we were talking, that's something I related yesterday when we were talking about generative AI. That's actually a good place, to say, I learned that, I will try myself this new skill, this new knowledge I heard with an AI, try to discuss that, get direct feedback on it. I can hone my skill. And actually, that's why I don't even call it sales rep. It can be any type of rep. You get those certifications, you should be able to answer questions that are beyond your scope. That's something that was a common theme yesterday. We cannot have functional ads. HCPs or customers don't care about those. So that could be actually the way to constantly upskill, stay in the game. So that would be the stasis. That's the basic status. Instead of having people driving around in waiting room, we have everyone doing their job. HCP focusing on patients, sales rep spending time on getting better and better. Now, still, there must be times for breaks. So here, I will ask you to pause your disbelief for a couple of seconds, because when I say, you take a break and you will be going in the metaverse, you will be, okay, now that's one bridge too far. You are stupid. No one will ever do that. Pause for a second and think, 20 years ago, if we would tell you that during a break, you would go, take your coffee, take your phone and start, I will be looking at my private message, and I will be looking at a work message, etc., or I will do that in the queue, etc., no one would believe that. Now we do. It's a given. So is it that far-fetched to imagine that same thing? You would do that, and a moment, and I would be in the metaverse, chatting with my loved ones or looking for information about work, etc. You might challenge me that, yeah, but Metaverse, VR, etc. First, VR is not a prerequisite. It's a nice enhancement. But even though VR, we always see as the big goggles, etc. The big goggles are like also, the big headsets, the Beats by Dre back in the day when it was the coolest to have the purest sound, etc. Now, who has those headsets beyond DJs? No, we have those tiny portable devices that we can have everywhere. We would think, like, who would know, again, 5 years ago, that we would have portable devices that we can hear everywhere? I'm sure that Apple, Google, or some others are working on creating devices that might not be as perfect, but really that would allow us to have an immersive experience. So I don't think this is science fiction. This is something that can happen. And again, not a revolution, but just an evolution on the way that we consume data in today's world. So that HCP is going, on a break, going in the metaverse. And it happens that based on the last medical case, they have a question. They have a medical question that needs attending. So here, and now it's getting a bit technical, so because there is some technology in the background. So I go in the metaverse, I have this question, so you enter the question as you would do today with, I want to know that based on those criteria, etc. So here, it would be basically doing, the matchmaking until instead of, I want to talk to a rep of that company, no, I want to talk to someone who is able to answer that question. And I want to talk to someone who is able to answer perhaps from a medical standpoint, because this is off-label, from a commercial standpoint, because it is about an event I want to attend, etc. Whatever the conditions, that would do the matchmaking, informing the lucky rep that is selected that, okay, now you have a couple of seconds to accept, so the smart contract will do the matchmaking. They will choose their identity. So that's the part. They have time to hone their skills. So now, okay, the smart contract in front of me means that I need to be able to have a medical discussion with, so basically be a medical liaison with that physician. I have the credential to say that I'm actually accredited to have an MSL discussion, so it's absolutely feasible. They have that. The smart contract does everything. They do the matchmaking, and they have the discussions. So this one, same as before, would just be virtual instead of face-to-face, but based on matchmaking. Nothing changed. I don't need to comment on the discussion, but what's changing after, and that's something that actually in the ideation I found absolutely fascinating as an opportunity, is, once you had this contract, did you fulfill the contract? So I was expecting to get high scientific content. Did I get it? Didn't I get it? You can expect that you would have those interactions. We are always talking about being value-based. Hey, what's the value? So HCP would be able to rate the interaction as we do. You finish a Teams call. How was your call? We finish that. We are used to that. So they might be able to do that. And what would be interesting is that if you are providing value, so now for companies, it will be like, can you ensure that we stay on top of the game so we can continue providing value? Because I can imagine that if you are constantly rated bad, as part of the criteria of the smart contract that will be sent, when you go to e-bookers, you don't want to have hotels that have below a certain star threshold reputation. That would be the same here. If you are a rep that is not able to provide content, whatever your company is, you will not be in the game and you will be pushed out. So that would be actually an interesting incentive to create content. So that's one that's interesting. So the way I believe, and again, it will not change. There will still be face-to-face. It will be more as a complement and as a way to enhance that. But that could really become a situation where we optimize time in a much better way. So really ensuring that rather than having those awkward matchmaking appointment that get canceled or gets really less value, no. It's really basically when the HCP has a need, they are able to get this information. And it will ensure that we get this constant evolution. And basically it's about, I'm a consumer-facing person, and I will be able to cater to those questions. So this is an interesting setup. Of course, this is long-term. So you will tell me and you will boot me out of the stage and say, okay, how do we get there? Do we want to get there? Do we think we can actually get there? I think not tomorrow. The first thing that's standing between us and that happening is, as an industry, we will do the same mistake as we were making when we are starting to understand social media. So I can imagine, and I already heard in many of the questions I had last year, is like, oh, we want to have and we want to build our own company's metaverse. That's defeating the purpose. It's as stupid as back in the day we were saying we are going to have our own social media platform in our company's website. Like, why? Why would we do that? No one wants to go. Do you want to go to many social media? We are on a couple that are the ones that have value, and then companies compete in that ecosystem for airtime. It would be the same. So do we have a platform? Do we have a kind of Web3 ecosystem? Not yet. That doesn't exist, and it will require time. It will require many people to put their ego aside to start building it. So that's a major hurdle. So that's something I wanted to mention. But I wanted to conclude with a bit of, I'm talking about us putting our differences aside and start step by step building it. So a bit of walking the talk. So this is by far not the metaverse, but some examples about, you see, different companies, some pharma, some tech, some even in finance, that are actually going together. This is a press release, so this is totally public information, but creating one common platform with information from many companies for HCP. This is one step towards many that we would have to get to that type of future and something in the metaverse, but those are the steps in change of culture that will get there. So I find it pretty exciting opportunity. I think it's our duty to continue, thinking about what are those futures, and especially what can we do in the meantime to get there, to work together. So that's always my preach. Let's work together and think that we should do that for patients and HCPs rather than our own egos and companies. Let's try to band together, and this future, which could actually be pretty beneficial, might eventually happen, or something totally different will happen, but we had a bit of pace to build it. I see we are very close to time, so what I suggest is, rather than taking questions that will take you even further away from lunch, I will be around. I'm a tall guy, so if you want to ask me questions, you know where to find me. And I thank you very much for not leaving the room in massive exodus before the end. Thank you so much.